Dr. Nature, please.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for the warm welcome. We've been to your meetings maybe a couple of times, and every time we had great conversations, and we've been welcomed nicely. So we really appreciate that, and thank you again. So my name is Arira, and I am the certified Ayurvedic practitioner. The Ayurveda is the most ancient form of natural health, and this is not something I'm probably going to be talking much about because it may get complex, and there's like different principles of this medicine to understand, but we'll just start with like something very simple so that everybody can relate to and understand. All right, so what is natural health? I think that we all have our own concept of natural health and how we want to see and view it and practice it, maybe. We all try to grow our own crops. We all try to minimally take the medications. We try to eat mindfully. We try to do best things that we think are good for us. Everybody on our individual level. What conceptually do we know what it is that, for example, naturopaths or homeopaths, how they function, what is their concept, what is the idea of the natural health really? And let's talk more about it. So I would say we will talk, if we have time to cover all these points here, we will. If not, then we'll just cover as much as we can so that it can be interesting for everybody, and we can lead this conversation in an interactive mode. So you can ask me questions as I go. If something is unclear, I'll be happy to answer. Right? Wonderful. So let's go. So, okay, the first is what is natural health in Ayurveda. Like I said, I'm not going to dwell much on Ayurveda, but just generally natural health is the term that we want to really investigate and, discover. So, natural health is the concept that is based on the idea of promoting the innate healing power of the body. So it's when we think of maybe, and some people may think, oh, natural health means like taking herbs instead of pills, and this is the idea that hits the first, right? And it is so, yes, that's one of them, yes, of course, but the first principle is when we allow our body to turn on the mechanisms for self-healing. That means that we should not really get in the way of it to heal itself, because that's what our body ultimately possesses. We all have the cellular intelligence that we don't consciously know, because it's the work of a different mind, subconscious mind, which actually works somewhere behind the scenes and makes these processes kind of hidden from us. And these processes are largely hidden from even the scientists, and this is why they're always on research and they're discovering new things. They're always coming up with new concepts and so on by studying how the body operates. But ultimately, by nature, body knows what it's doing if we only give it a chance. So that means we should not get in the way of self-healing. And the second thing is that we need to promote this self-healing by knowing what we are doing. And here we don't go in details, but we know that at large we have some good principles of healthy living. For example, we know that we need to exercise, right? So we need to somehow incorporate the exercise. We know that we need to eat healthy, and we'll talk about what is healthy eating generally. Also, and things like that. We know that we need to rest and we need to avoid the stress. So this is what we're doing, and while we're doing this, we're already pursuing our well-being naturally. Why the natural healing is becoming so popular? There are few factors right now, and like Irina mentioned, because we're in a crisis, and this crisis, if we break it down, consists of some aspects and factors. One of them is, and this probably one, the biggest one too, I would probably put it like maybe on the third place, but I'll talk about it as first, is disillusionment of the modern day medical system. The way that they do things and the way how they treat people. how they just treat the symptoms, but they don't really discover the root cause of certain conditions. However, they're just managing symptoms by sometimes not very adequate means, by just providing the harsh medications in large amounts and not really working at the level of nutrition and at the level of the lifestyle and things like that. Those that are more natural things that can leave us with no side effects and can have us balanced and on the way to better health. Also, it is the enabling of the body, the innate healing ability, like I said. This is ultimately what we really want to pursue. The natural health professional will always try to get you to start practicing the better lifestyle versus just giving you some pills or even supplements and just leave you at that. They want you to use these supplemental things as a second line. But first they would like to ask you to start practicing and realizing, doing something with your body, also practicing your mind, exercising your understanding of what you're doing and how to do it correctly. And changing your life, going through transformation. So transformation will probably be the key to natural health, where you, by your own patterns of behavior, where you're changing your habits, changing your nutrition, getting out of your comfort zone, introducing some other natural ways to heal. By pursuing those means, you are transforming your own health and seeing the results without producing any unwanted adverse effects, and then trying to annihilate the side effect with something else, and then you just fall in a vicious circle of pursuing the imbalanced way of pursuing your health. It's empowering the self-care, holistic approach. Natural health views the person as the whole person, where all the systems and organs come together to provide the best possible well-being versus just only addressing the disease in a specific narrow way, treating the symptoms, whereas the natural health views you as a whole person who needs to become balanced and harmonious with mind, energies, and their body. Natural health and Ayurveda specifically can really identify the causative factors for a lot of conditions. The way that it does that is taking the root understanding of the imbalance not in the physical body, but in the metaphysical body. This is what the ancients, they knew something else. They knew that our physical body is not the limit of our existence, and it's not the basics of our existence. There is something else going on within our body on a different level, on the level of the subtle processes and energies. And this is what now the modern science is becoming to understand, the quantums and metaphysics. Exactly, this is where our true essence lies, and this is why we have not just our psyche, and you know what psyche is? It's from Greek word the soul or the mind, and that's what we exactly are. We also have the mental body, and the mental body is put in our physical body, or let's say our mental body is dressed up in our physical body, and this is a metaphysical concept, really. So whatever happens, it first happens in the mental body, on the level of metaphysics, and then it starts to project into the physical body. So physical body is the last one to enter the events. If something already manifesting through physical body, that means in the mental body there is already a change, long-standing change. So this is why doctors will also say that all diseases come from the mind or from the nerves. Also, because it can sustain the continued health results and prevent disease also, because when you're pursuing natural health, it's like you're preventing the future diseases from happening, from accumulating, not even knowing exactly what's going to hit you, but already making your immune system intact and waking up all the strength and protective powers of your body to withstand certain harsh conditions and infection diseases and so on. And of course, natural health is compatible with other modalities too. So whenever somebody is seeing a doctor and they're getting treatment, then they can at the same time practice natural health, and there will not be any controversy. The pillars of the natural health is the food, dynamics, and the mindset. There are three things that we need to rely on in order to balance and pursue the natural health. I'll just mention quickly about Ayurveda, and here we have what Ayurveda studies. It's the science, we can translate it as science of life, or the human at the glow of the radiant light. Why is it radiant light? Because there's different realms of spectral glow, and those are quantum vibrations, and they go in the spectrums. It's like a rainbow. So once the light goes through different density of the ether, it is emitting different vibration. And the same is with the human. Our mental body is so made that it processes the vibrations of the ether. So this is the concept of Ayurveda. That's what it's studying, and this is what it's called after. And the main principles of Ayurveda are the energies. Like I said, energies, metaphysics, quantums, something that it's not tangible by our senses. We cannot touch it, we cannot see it, we cannot smell it, we cannot hear it, but largely we rely on our senses to perceive the reality. But there's something else behind it, behind our senses, that is still exists. It's just not readily available to our perception, but it's still there. But once there's like certain ways that you can practice to attune your perception to start feeling those subtle things, and seers before us who were able to perceive these things. We call them extrasense people, right? Or people who can see and foresee things. They have a very high level of intuition. And the intuition can be developed so greatly that they can see things that normal humans can't. But it doesn't mean that if we cannot perceive them that they don't exist, and they do exist. So the basics are the energies. They flow through the channels. One channel is the consciousness, and the consciousness is created by yin-yang, and you probably know that from the Chinese medicine. It's not particularly Ayurveda, but Chinese medicine, Tibet medicine, stems out of Ayurveda. But in Ayurveda, it is the relationship between the male force and female force, one being concentrated and the other being expanded. Pretty much this is a magnetic field. We know what electromagnetism is. And magnetic field, that's exactly what yin-yang is. And this is the beginning of the energy. And in Ayurveda, it's called Prakriti and Purusha, the male beginning and the female beginning. That what happens in the ether, and then it creates the swirl. From the swirl, there sparks the lightning. So it's pretty much when we see the storm. First we see the swirl, and then we see lightnings out of it, because the friction happens there. And this is the quantums, and this is pretty much just the same thing that we can apply here. And the other part of the energies are the elements, the physical elements, where this consciousness already manifesting in reality, and it's manifesting through the principles of 5 elements. There are 3 of them. The first one is the element of air, but how do you understand this being related to us? So the element of air is pretty much the energy of transmission and conduction. And everything that moves in our body can be overseen by this element of air. So it's pretty much this description of the processes and mechanisms of things happening in our body. But then, of course, as the Ayurveda studies it deeper, it can be refined and broken down to like very subtle components to explain each organ separately. And even the transmission conduction principle can also be defined in a very refined state. And then the energy of fire, how do you understand that at perspective? The energy of fire is really an energy of transformation, whereas one transforms to another. One substance going through a process of transformation, becoming another substance. This is, for example, our digestion or perception, the sensory perception, where we hear the sound and it starts making sense to us. So this is the highest function of our neurological system, for example. So this is transformation. And the energy of earth, and here we can translate it into the energy of formation or stabilization, where we can see the result of this cycle that produces certain either function or tissue. The tissue itself, the physical manifestation, pretty much the way that we see our body in the mirror, is the element of kapha, or the element of earth. It's the Sanskrit name for it. So this is what Ayurveda studies, and now it also articulates a lot of ways to...
Can you please maybe give examples of each element in terms of the bodily constitution and the behavior patterns so that it's easier to relate, to understand?
Okay, well, generally, the element of air, people would be thin, lean, prone to subtle things. They would be very sensitive, like a very subtle like sound is what they perceive better. They would be prone to developing anxiety and worry. They would be very easy to startle, to scare people. So that's the element of air prevalent in someone's constitution. So when we talk about these elements, we know that all three of them are in all of us, but in different ratio. And this is conditioned by our birth. So one can have the element of air more developed in their constitution by nature, and that means that those features will be very pertinent to that person. And the element of fire would be mid-constitution person with a strong personality, bold. They would be aggressive. They would want to be, in control. And when we talk about these qualities of characters or qualities of body, we need to understand that how do we understand the energy is by the qualities. Qualities are attributes of energies. So it's not particularly the energy that you're going to see, but you're going to see the quality. And by quality, you will know what energy there is behind it. So the quality of fires are such, it's sharp, penetrating, hot, and so on. And if you see somebody possessing those qualities, then you'll know that that element is predominant in the constitution. And Kapha people, they would be calm, stable, they would be really hard to get out of state of mind, down to earth, calm and very kind, loving people. But when they're imbalanced, they would be lazy, nagging. Those are qualities of a person with that constitution. And Ayurveda, of course... Yes.
So does every person have one of those features? They cannot have all of them in this?
Oh yes, they can. Yeah, all combinations are possible. Like all different combinations are possible, and this is what actually makes up our individuality that way, different constitutions. Usually they're dual constitutions with two elements, and the third one would be like really small one, or there could be people with all three elements present in their constitution, and if some of these elements go out of their balance, it would be pretty challenging to put that element back in place. Whereas like one element constitution person would be easy to balance, but sometimes, it really depends. But what is considered a disease by Ayurveda is when one of these elements gets out of their balance and deranges and vitiates. So this is the time that we can talk about the imbalance and development of certain disease. First, on the intuitive level, the person would start feeling something disaligned inside, but they would go to the doctor, and the doctor will tell them, it's okay, just be like that. Come back in 2 months, we'll check, and if tests show that something's wrong with the body, then we'll establish a diagnosis. But before then, all tests are fine. It doesn't matter what you feel. You're healthy. But the person says, I'm like really intuitively feel something's wrong. And this is the level that Ayurveda would already consider intervening and doing something. Naturally, of course, balancing the dosha back and understanding what dosha is vitiating or which element is vitiating and from out of which organ, which system and so on, because Ayurveda really articulates in a very refined way. But physically, of course, it's not going to be manifesting because, like I said, first it manifests on the metaphysical level, but then on the physical level. But when it's manifesting on the physical level, we're talking about the late state of disease, which is diversification of the tissue. In Ayurveda, it's considered to be the latest stage of disease, which at that point, the allopathic doctor can establish diagnosis and start treating it. Now, treatment is one word that the Western medicine uses, the allopathic medicine, and healing, that's what the natural medicine is using. So we're healing, they're treating. All right, well, Ayurveda has the ways of putting that element back in balance by using the food, using the dynamics, and using the mindset. Balancing these three aspects will ultimately give the result. The result is not immediate. You need to work on it, of course, and this is why we promote self-care and self-healing. So from patient, the person becomes self-healer, and within some time of the diligent work, according to this schedule, they achieve the results of putting the energies back to their balance, to their ratioed balance. Another, and let's go to the next one. So the root causes of disease. So another root cause of disease by Ayurveda is considered to be imbalanced sense. Why is it imbalanced? Because we crave. We crave things constantly. Our mind is untamed. It's always craving for sensations. It wants to pursue some sensation, sensation of the sweetness of a good tasting food to what they think is tasty, for example, sugar. And this is how the mind tricks us. For example, we know that sugar is not good for us, but the person continues having it because, they crave for it and because they cannot control their mind. Mind wants to be satisfied, and once the senses are like wild horses. If the sense is untamed and is craving, and the mind wants to satisfy, then of course no reasoning would actually be present here. The reasoning mind is kind of sleeping, it's shut, and then the person starts pursuing that taste, pursuing that feeling to satisfy the sensation of the body. And sensations, they arise from the subtle body, from the subconsciousness, and the mind perceiving the sensation then starts ultimately pursuing that satisfaction of this sensation. And this is the way to develop the disease. Largely, it actually relates to pursuing certain foods, something that we're used to, and it's not specifically that may be healthy. We know that we're eating unhealthy, however we're doing it. How come that? Are we insulting our own intelligence? Kinda we do. Then why? Because subconsciously we're driven so, because working with the mind is very hard. You can fix things in your physical body, but fixing things in the mind is ultimately hard. It is really a difficult task to get rid of the habits, to change their subconscious programs, because we're programmed to have pizza every Friday, and mind's already in tune with this. Even though we know this is not a good thing, it satisfies our mental craving, yes, but then it makes our body feel so bad. To what we get, we're gonna pay for. We're gonna be responsible for it. It's not gonna go anywhere. It's just gonna turn into some certain condition, symptom that we'll have to deal somehow with. The seed of the disease is in the mind first, and then it goes into the body. Body starts reflecting this imbalanced condition because we undermine the body's ability to self-heal by the improper nutrition, pretty much by the way that we don't exercise our body to make it expel all the waste products and toxins. Imbalanced metabolic homeostasis. You probably hear this word a lot now. So what is the metabolism? Metabolism is the expression of two main processes. One is assimilation, the other is elimination. Elimination is very important. However, we forget about elimination. And elimination is a passive process, an inertive process. Assimilation is active, where we eat things and actively our body distributes the nutrients all the way to the cells. But elimination of toxins and waste products happen on cellular level too. And the waste products need to be properly eliminated from the cell out into the external environment. If that doesn't happen, then the toxins, they delay inside our system, and the waste products, they become toxins, they become toxic. They mutate to toxic substances, which then becomes the food for infections and molds and fungi. And this is how those secondary problems then come. They don't come as the first line of concern. They only come when we welcome them by our retention of the toxic substances inside, and they are actually helping us get rid of it. If we cannot get rid of it ourselves, meaning that if we are not responsible for our elimination, if we cannot support the elimination processes normally ourselves. That means like fasting, maybe diligently on the due days, eating lightly, not eating late at night maybe, and so on, eating more vegetables at least. These were the basics that we can start to support our elimination. Because nowadays, all these concepts, the new nutritional concepts, they're pretty much aiming the support of elimination, because nowadays, especially in the United States, the bigger problem is lack of elimination versus the lack of assimilation. We're not deficient with the nutrients in nutrition, we're deficient with the understanding that we need to help our body to eliminate toxic wastes. And if we don't do it, then secondary, the infection comes, which can then dwell inside these toxic wastes inside our body and cause our stimulate our immune system to start expelling. Expelling what? Expelling those wastes. It's not specifically those bacteria, they are friends. Think of it this way. For example, two people in the room, they can catch the same virus, but one will develop the symptoms, the other will not. Why? They're both exposed. Because in one person, there's toxic waste accumulated. And this is where the virus will go and dwell and multiply and will start its disruptive action. Whereas the other person's immune system will quickly recognize this virus because there's hardly any waste accumulated in the body. The immune system is intact, and therefore that body will turn on the protective, the defense mechanism quicker than the impaired body. It's pretty much like being neighbors. If there is no garbage between your lens, you know your neighbor in face, you can recognize them. Now imagine if somebody puts the pile of garbage between your houses, then you hardly know your neighbor. And then all of a sudden, when you see your neighbor, you may not recognize them, you may recognize them for that garbage too. And this is where autoimmune conditions grow too, because we have a lot of that toxic waste in our body that cells are so disoriented on their cellular intelligence level that they start producing the macrophages even against some good nutrients because they're triggered so by accumulation of these wastes. This is a
To give you an example, we actually
baseline problem.
Health food restaurant in Chicago a few years ago, and we saw people with all kinds of allergies. So we had people with allergies to apples, carrots, parsley, you name it. Yes, and it's all because of what Dr. Nature is saying, that there is too much waste accumulated in the body.
Way to understand the allergies formation and autoimmune disease development. It stems out of the internal pollution and the inflammation. And what is the inflammation? The inflammation is the reaction of antigen, antibody. Antibody and antigen. So there's a foreign body, foreign protein, foreign DNA present inside the body, which is not the amino acid, because people, they confuse proteins and amino acids. They think that they need to eat proteins, whereas we just need amino acids, not exactly proteins. Because the proteins that we eat, they not necessarily break down to amino acids, the particle that we need as a nutrient, but they retain fragmental structure and get inside the blood that way, and they pose the threat as the antigen, to which the antibody is being formed, and then we end up with the inflammatory process or the antigen-antibody reaction. And that is due to those wastes and the accumulation of toxins inside our body. This is why we're developing, this is why our body is producing the macrophages and leukocytes, lymphocytes, immune cells. And the production of immune cells alone requires a lot of energy and requires a lot of proteins and requires a lot of fats. So instead of producing those immune cells, why not just give up eating the substances that can pose the antigens? And that way that we're not wasting the internal energy of our body, which each cell has the certain amount for, and whether it's using it too quickly or it's using it mindfully and slowly will define how long that cell will live. That generally makes up the longevity of our own cells. So as much as we can preserve the health of each cell and its longevity, this much we're preserving ourselves and giving ourselves a better chance to live longer and healthier life. All right. Why is it manifesting in different conditions? It really depends on which organs are involved, which tissues are involved in this pollution process and inadequate metabolic homeostasis, even mentally, because the mental body, let me see if I have the slide for that. Well, not right now, but I'll tell you, the mental body also has the certain energies travel by certain channels. And if we are encountering certain emotions that can block channels and miss flow or reduced flow of energy towards that area of the body, and that area becomes weaker and more predisposed to accumulation of wastes, and then becomes diseased. All right, so the 3 pillars of life, I started to talk about them, but really think of it just generally. What else there is in life other than food, other than movement, and other than the mind? And of course faith, but faith is spiritual. Spirituality is a very high flown level. But here, what is pertinent to our day-to-day life in the regular setting, food, the dynamics, and our mind, the ability to think and control our emotions. There is nothing else, and we operate on this level. For natural healing, any natural healer would be operating on this level, maybe in a different modes, with different modalities, different approaches, different principles, but based on these 3 aspects. With food, what's important to understand? What is there that we can do with our food in order to start balancing ourselves even tomorrow? What we eat, when we eat, how we eat, and how much we eat. So these 4, if you keep them in mind, you will not go wrong, because you can ultimately answer questions to yourself. We all know the answers already to the questions that we ask. We just need to take time and think of it reasonably, and then the reasoning mind will tell our operational mind, the one that thinks, what to do. And then that mind that thinks, that actually makes the body move and controls the body, it will take the right action instead of taking a wrong action. So by reason, what we eat, what do we need to eat? And this is very basic. See if you can relate to it and support it. So excluding GMO and processed foods, that's very common sense. Choosing organic whenever possible, of course, excluding refined foods, carbs, and trans fats. And they talk about it. So every time that we want to take some refined food, refined sugar, refined flour, think of it. Why? Do I need it? Or at least if your mental program is set so that you cannot live without it, and you would pursue it now and then still, just tell your mind, okay, I can have it once a month just to satisfy your craving, because otherwise you'll start giving me emotions. This is how the mind works, because subconsciously we have the knots and ties, and they're made of these habits and programs, and they are always communicating with our mind to satisfy their craving, and we cannot just get rid of them. We cannot not consider that. We cannot just be one and then come out different tomorrow. No, there's like a huge area of transformation, and that takes time. And we can set it up. We can strike an agreement with our mind to, okay, we'll do it once a month, okay, and everybody's happy with it, okay, but otherwise, let's do this and start working on it, of course. And then excluding majority of dairy products and animal meats, because those are heavy substances and they very imbalancing, they're very toxic, they create a lot of waste products inside the body, and they begin to create these antigen and inflammatory reactions, accumulating a lot of mucus, a lot of pus and pussy pockets inside of our organs that then mutate with the presence of the mold. They will mutate to oncological conditions. They will create high blood pressure and plaques inside our vessels. They will affect the kidney, they will affect the connective tissue and our bones, and they will affect our mental state, because when someone is not having the meat for a long time, they become angry, and that's how mind is affected by it too. So aggression is part of the meat-based diets too. Not only that, but there is also this metaphysical aspect that can reflect into accumulation of not good consequences for the spiritual life, really. At least this is what Ayurveda is.
Meat, is it beef that's the problem, or is it all meat that's the problem?
Well, generally all meat is a problem, but understanding that we're in a metabolic mode that functions based on this for entire life, and it's already preset, our system's already preset to that metabolic mode because we have different metabolic modes. And they're not really articulated by the Western medicine, but we do have different metabolic modes in terms of how we harness the energy. Ultimately, what do we need from our nutrition is sustainability of our body and high energy levels, right? So we can actually harness both from different plant-based products because all the necessary amino acids and all the essential vitamins and all the essential fats are present in plant-based kingdom. We don't need to, physically even, we don't need to resort to animal-based products in order to sustain our body healthy. And there's the energy aspect. There's more energy in living fruit and vegetables than there is in a cooked food or especially cooked meat. Think of it, there's energy and there's matter. And once you're cooking meat, you're making it really substantial, heavy matter. So this is the expression of dense material, physical substance. Whereas the energy has different quality. The energy is light and quick, right? It's moving, and this is what the fruit possess, living fruit and vegetables. Here's the answer. Why are we so attached to meat and dependent on it? Is because our metabolic system is made to function on it. And for you to change the ways, it will take you through transformation, and not only physical, but and mental transformation too. But the way the meat acts is also, if it's not mixed with other food groups like carbohydrates especially, then meat can produce some good result in the physical body and make you feel good physically too. How does it do it? See, each food group produces certain toxins too. Carbohydrates, they produce glycogen. Glycogen is the substance that retains a lot of waste products too. It's like the starchy sugar inside our muscle and inside our liver. And then the fats. Fats produce the adipose tissue. And adipose tissue is like a sump of toxins too. It retains a lot of toxins and heavy metals and mucus. And then proteins. Proteins produce pus. And that is the ultimate toxic waste product of proteins. And pus will be produced no matter what. And the pus is the product of antigen-antibody reaction. And that pus is not specifically will be eliminated from your system, because if the person in that metabolic mode, their liver function is majorly clogged, and the liver doesn't have enough time to recuperate in order to start processing those toxins from deeper tissues. But if you don't combine the carbs and the proteins together, then your stomach digestion will be enhanced. Because when we combine carbs and proteins together, we introduce the controversial digestion in our stomach, because there are two acids that are produced. One is hydrochloric acid, we know that, right? Hydrochloric acid breaks down the proteins, but then there is another one, hydrofluoric acid. And hydrofluoric acid in the stomach, it works with complex carbohydrates. And these two acids, they exclude each other. If we eat them together, then hydrofluoric acid will suppress hydrochloric acid, and proteins will not be broken down to the basic particles, amino acids. So, and then there will be accumulation of pus inside our system. So this is how complex it is. But if you exclude the carbs, and I would probably, people are more attached to their animal products than to the sugar, for example, or refined flours, I would recommend going off the refined sugars and refined carbohydrates. So this is the best, easiest way to do before you consider going off animal products. And then don't mix carbohydrates with proteins together. Either you're choosing the carbohydrates or you're choosing the meats, just don't mix them together, but complement each one of them with the vegetables, with a serving of vegetables. That way you will enhance your stomach digestion. Then once you've removed these products, you will start losing the glycogen. That will enhance your health. You will feel better, you will feel change already, and this is what the modern time diets like keto diet and the carnivore lion's diet. What is the lion's diet? Carnivore diet. Have you heard of it? This is the new type of diet where they're just eating meat and they're becoming healthy. How are they becoming healthy? Because they're releasing the glycogen and then they're releasing the adipose tissue. Those two tissues are great retainers of the toxins, and one being released and the other being reduced and releasing toxins and eliminated will make the person feel so great and strong, because at the same time, even though not all the volume of these proteins are digested well, but some of them, of course, will provide amino acids, but another part will not be digested and will still be forming the pus inside the body. In the long run, that person may get the diagnosis of cancer all of a sudden, and that's how they do. Like the keto diet people who are on animal keto diet, before they go on proteins, they eat fats. If they eat fats, it actually produces pretty much the same effect, especially saturated fats of animals. They will release the glycogen, which is already enhancement in health, and then they will start breaking the adipose tissue because they're eating saturated fats. So that means that the white fat will be dissolved. They will boost their health. But then, like in the long run, they may end up with a diagnosis of cancer out of the blue while feeling good, while being fit. They may just be told that they have some tumor in some of their system. That's it. That's the fact. So fasting can produce the same result. And then instead of introducing the high molecular complex proteins like animal-based proteins, we need the basic oligopeptides, amino acids of the plants in full spectrum, at least the essential amino acids. There are 9 essential amino acids that we need to provide in order to be balanced, and all we need to do is take supplements, plant-based supplements where they have the concentrated amino acid amount. But then there is another even metabolic mode, and I was talking about the warm or hot metabolic mode right now, but then there is another one which is the cold synthesis of energy, and this is where you don't really need the physical substance in order to produce one. Because, well, ultimately we know that even with these amino acids, there are only 9 essential ones, but the rest our body produces itself. When we are switching, the amount of essential amino acids is reducing, and our body is capable of producing all spectrum of amino acids. And this is in line with the Big Bang theory, for example, because we are Big Bang inside ourselves, metaphysically. That means first there was just a vibration. There was no earth right away. That means there were no minerals that can make those amino acids, right? So there was no physical structure yet. But there was just the vibration. There was the ether. Out of the ether, the vibration went. Like I was showing, the prana, purusha, and prakriti, yin, yin, the swirl, the magnetic swirl, which then produced the fire. And then the fire radiated in spectrums, and each star of each spectrum was then blowing into another star of a lower spectrum while creating this dust around. And then this dust is already the substance. That's already the earth formation. So pretty much this is what it is. Our physical matter, I like to draw the parallel here based on Adam and Eve. God created Adam first, the man. And the man is the consciousness. And then Eve was created out of the rib, which is the physical matter, manifestation. And then Adam married Eve. So consciousness is inseminating the matter to produce sense. So because everywhere we look, what we see is the matter, but this matter makes sense. Everything makes sense. And how's the sense? Sense is bestowed by the consciousness. Consciousness expresses what it is. Consciousness optimizes and structures the matter. And so pretty much this is the process inside of each of us at a microcosmic level. With the scientific eyes, we always look outside and we try to understand the natural law within the framework of the universe. However, we can understand the natural law within the framework of our body. Maybe that's an easier way to look at things. Okay, so how we eat, and here comes mindfulness. Before eating, we need to relax and turn on the parasympathetic mode, which is rest and digest, in order to bring the blood pressure down, open up our blood vessels, and promote the assimilation. Then we need to express gratitude or say prayer. This is utmostly important because we really do want to offer things that we eat and be grateful for them to the divine. That will make our faith stronger. Enjoy the sight of the food and smell of the food, like a little foreplay with the food to kind of attune our senses to assimilate the nutrients. So sit down to it, and that goes to rest, relax. And chewing thoroughly. Extensive chewing is the way to satisfy your mental craving, because why does mind want to eat? It doesn't want to eat just to stuff the stomach, right? It wants to feel the taste. And if we want to feel the taste, that's fine. Even that pizza, that's good. But that doesn't mean that we need to eat like 10 slices of it. We can just eat 1 or 2, but do it slowly. At the same time, we're breaking the food down and make it easier digestible. And at the same time, we're satisfying our mental craving. After chewing for a while, you will see that the mind satisfies and tells you, I don't want anymore. And there, we're in a good.
Is there a number of chews that you recommend for a mouthful?
That's a good one. So in the last century, there was one doctor. His name was Dr. Fletcher. He came up with this idea, well, maybe not particularly him, but he articulated in his time that, and he called it extensive chewing technique. So he suggested to begin with 1 minute. He says that all the conditions and diseases can be eliminated not by changing the nutrition, but chewing extensively. And he himself gotten rid of a lot of his own conditions by just chewing the same food that he is normally eating. And he started with 1 minute and went up to like 4 minutes. Too long, it seems like, right? But maybe there's sense in it too, who knows? But at least, from 30 seconds to 1 minute. The way that you know this is good enough is when you chew it to make it liquid. Another said, chew your water, drink your food. So that's what he was referring. So remember, yeah.
His dad, my father-in-law, he had a stroke a few years ago.
Yeah.
And practicing this extensive chewing technique plus modifying his nutrition a little, he was able to not just restore his health, but he started feeling better than 15 years prior to the stroke. So it's all real.
Yeah. Right. And one thing is that after you've achieved certain results with health and you think that you're healthy enough, but then continuing by this mindful way of living, then you will understand that your body becomes more endurant and more capable of. Your mind becomes sharper, your memory becomes better, and so on. And this is the indicator that you're on the right path. So it's not just taking care of your health and balancing it to the normal state, but it goes much farther than that. Avoid TV, phone, and all other distractions, of course, because we don't want to switch between the modes of parasympathetic and sympathetic, because trigger the blood pressure up and will prevent the assimilation of nutrients, of course. Generally, distraction, you really want to be focused on the food when you're eating. Friendly conversation is always good. Family, friends together in a relaxed, interactive mode, that's good, but please don't try not to talk about the elections. Probably not going to be helpful. Well, yeah, very easy, just touch upon, yeah. When we eat, we also need to know, like, not eating too late. After 6 p.m., our stomach really shuts down. It's not really digesting well anymore. So, but we are drawn to eat late, and this because we have the part of the microflora which becomes active at night, because that's the conditionally parasitic type of microflora which gets activated late at night, and it then sends the signal to your brain that it wants to eat, and you start craving. You want to eat late at night because that parasitic microflora, which doesn't really produce you good things, it doesn't give you enzymes, it doesn't give you amino acids, it doesn't give you vitamins, but what it does and why is it conditionally parasitic, because it still helps us, but in the way of removing wastes. And this is why we are not really dying from that bad food, because that parasitic microflora kind of helps us remove that waste. It processes it. So, but still we want to promote the good quality microflora, good strengths of bacteria in our microbiome versus the parasitic ones. And of course, there's also your objectives. What do you want to do? Do you want to saturate? For somebody, the healing nutrition would be eating more, of course, somebody in debilitating conditions. And there are countries like that. They don't need to fast and they don't to go on intermittent fasting. If you're driven by your objective, for example, to saturate, then you have your breakfast. If you want to lose, then you don't have your breakfast. Breakfast means break fast. So if you continue fasting, you're losing and you're reaching your objective of supporting your elimination. We are promoting our elimination part of metabolism when we're fasting, when we're not eating, when we sleep. This is why people sleep so long hours and they feel sluggish, because they don't have enough of sleep for elimination. Elimination did not complete. And this is why in the morning they may feel sluggish. During the day they have low energy because of the waste accumulation in the body. So in order to rid of that, what we need to do is support our elimination system, give it a chance. So we need to rest more and eat less, and maybe skip breakfast, have only 1 or 2 meals a day in a window. Intermittent fasting helps here, so that's a good way to do it. So you want breakfast, then you have breakfast. What quality breakfast you want to have? Heavier breakfast or lighter breakfast? You may have a green smoothie for breakfast, or you may have oatmeal for breakfast, or 2 different things. If you want to balance qualities in you, you need to introduce the opposites. If you continue introducing the same type of qualities, you will only reshape those qualities. They will become deranged and out of balance and will cause some difficulty in the future. And hunger is the indicator of when you need to eat. Trying to saturate the cahexic person who is thin and lean and needs nutrients, and those people usually are not hungry. They don't feel hunger. They may go without eating for a long time, and you probably may know even some people who just don't want to eat, but they need to. That's maybe anorexia type of people. But if you are in a different mode, then always look at the hunger. Unless you are not hungry, there's no sense of eating, especially if you are on a reducing schedule, not saturating, but reducing schedule, then hunger is the indicator. This is when you're really physically ready, because otherwise it can be triggered by the emotions. Emotional eating, that's the lack of love, because food presents the energy of love. So when people are underloved or they crave for love, they start overeating, trying to compensate for their emotion. So this is the misprojection. This is the trick of the mind. We want to really satisfy our emotion. That means that we want to have loving relationships versus eating food instead. All right, and how much? Well, if you're on extensive chewing, you'll eat less, of course, but as a rule of thumb, eat to 75% of your fullness. 3/4. Always leave some room in your stomach. Sometimes it's hard to do, especially for people who are in the mode of filling to the top, but that can be their downfall and the ways need to change. All right, dynamics, this is another pillar. Yes?
There was a statement that said use digestive breathing after.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Tell us what that
Of course. Well, thanks for reading that. Okay.
Just mention one thing, I will be getting the PowerPoint and we'll share that after.
Right. But it's just mentioned here, but let me elaborate on it a little bit. So digestive breathing, it's to increase the digestive power of stomach and the small intestine. How it is done, it is considered that the right part of our body is hot, the left part is cold. So the right nostril brings heat to the body, the left nostril brings cold to the body, coolness. Now digestion is the hot process. That means that we want to breathe through our right nostril, okay? So after you've had your meal, the practice is as follows. It's called Samana breathing. Samana is the force of digestion in our intestine. Samana is the energy of air that is responsible for assimilation. We want to increase it. By breathing through the belly button, through the right nostril into the belly button, or just imagining like the air that you're pulling comes through the belly button. And while the best position, while lying down on the left side completely with the head tilted by the left hand like this, and on the left side, makes your stomach in a natural position, and it compresses the left part of your body, opens up the right part of the body, which is the heating. This is what we want to introduce. In closing the left nostril, we need to start breathing through the right nostril into the belly button and make the cycle of 7 breaths, in and out, slow.
Why don't we try it now?
We can do it in the sitting position too. You can do it in a sitting position. Just sit down, relax. Yeah, we can try it. Let's do that. If nobody objects, I guess we can do it. Yeah, let me show you this technique. Maybe if you, once you've had your meal and you try it, that will make you feel better in terms of that, how you quickly are digesting your food.
Our kids, they are on the swimming team, so if they had too much to eat for lunch and they're still full by the time it's time to go to practice, so they do this Samana digestive breathing, and it really helps.
Okay, so sit down, relax. You may close your eyes. You need to close your left nostril. Open up your right nostril, of course. Then establish the mental connection between the right nostril and the belly button. And naturally, without any specially modified breathing movements, just take the inhalation through your belly button and then exhale the same way. Wait like a second, do another breath mindfully while observing that connection. Another one. And another one. And 2 more. All right. So this is Samana breathing. This is a cycle of 7 breaths. You can do 7, 14, 21. That's what Ayurveda teaches. Go in cycle 7 for this breathing particular, because numbers are also like sacred. They reflect the spectrums of metaphysics, and numbers are essential in this respect.
Favorite number?
I try not to preference, but I think 9 is something that I would really reflect on as the completion. I like things complete, and 9 is a complete number. Yeah. All right, wonderful. So the next slide is the dynamics, the type of exercises. The exercises are important. We are as alive as we move. And the types of exercises, they're not many. They're like 3 or 4. I added 1 more, but consider to be 4: aerobic and cardio. This is number 1. Breathing and making your heart beat, promoting the circulation. That promotes the lymphatic drainage as well, because lymphatic flow is passive. It's moved by how the blood circulation is active. And aerobic exercises is also a breathing exercises. Ayurveda articulates a lot of types of breathing exercises. It doesn't need to be quick. There could be slow exercises. There could be some non-breathing phases in the breathing techniques, that too. And breath is actually controls and governs the processes. It either stops, specifies some processes, or ignites some other processes. So this is how the breath is important. Breath controls the swirl of magnetic field generally. It can make it more intense, in which way then the ignition of the mental energy will be more efficient. That means that breath can stimulate the mental activity. So the next one is the strengthening exercises for muscles and for bones primarily, of course, and we know them. Calisthenic exercises I would recommend mostly, which is when body utilizes its own weight without having to resort to some additional weights, but in different situations it can go different ways. Then balancing and strengthening and stretching activities in yoga, one of them also, extending on one foot with the closed eyes, balancing exercises, just walking in one line, some simple ones, some more complex ones, training your balance, and stretching your muscle. Stretching muscles is very essential because muscle grows when it is stretched. When the muscle is not stretched, then it would hardly grow. If you're doing a lot of muscle building activity and you don't stretch your muscle, you may end up with a muscle overtension and breaking of the fibers. And if you stretch your muscle, then you really provide the potential to your muscle to grow. You relax it, promote the circulation and nutrition to your muscle. So this is very important. Stretching is also good for the mind, balancing the mind. Too, it pacifies the mind, reduces stress, and mind-body flow. Those are more like Tai Chi type of exercises, and slow walking. Walking itself is also mind pacifying, so it's mind-body flow. And some gentle movements, maybe even dancing, that is also pacifying for the mind. So that's the mind-body type of exercises.
Water exercise.
Swimming is great. Swimming is stretching and aerobic, and it's balancing and it's flow. So swimming, one of the greatest exercises. All right, well-balanced exercise program will definitely incorporate all these goals that are needed. So everybody might need to consider their own exercising program and articulate it in a schedule, and then just stick to it. And achieving results slowly but surely. And here is...
When it's better to exercise than another time, like in the morning, is it better to exercise?
Oh yes, in the morning, yes, of course. The different exercises can come different times of the day. We need to think of circadian rhythms. Have you heard of circadian rhythms? How the day is broken into. So Ayurveda articulates that again by the energies. So the morning is the time for earth energy. That means it's heavy and it's stable, and you need to be active more in the morning. So exercising actively, like jogging and maybe even some strenuous exercises come in the morning, they will be balancing. Then the mid part of the day is the heating time, is the time of the fire energy. This is where you want to cool and kind of calm down. Air energy, it's like the early afternoon. This is where you want to meditate. Evening time with earth energy again, and here you can be active again. Later, you need to pacify before going to bed. Consider those increments of the day by the energies and activity type by its quality. So whether it's vitiating and active or whether it's calming and pacifying. And the mindset is very important, and as I mentioned, mind is a separate entity from the body, yet it's integrated into it, and the point of integration is our chakral system, where the chakras are the holders of the emotions of different type, and they also condition the quality of our subconsciousness, and subconsciousness is basically our body. This is what the mental body is primarily made of. And then there's conscious mind, and then there's higher conscious mind, which is also unconscious. So in many people, the higher conscious mind, the reasoning mind, is in a sleeping mode, dormant. And subconscious mind, we are not specifically perceiving by our consciousness. The way our subconscious mind is conscious is by the sensations of the body. It's always conscious to sensations of the body. Like something happened and all of a sudden I'm motivated to go and pursue certain activity by feeling. So these feelings and sensations, they come from subconsciousness. Yet it's considered to be unconscious, because there's just one expression of the mind here, the frontal mind, the operational mind, that the senses are connected to, and the thinking ability. This is what is active and conscious. But higher conscious mind is dormant. It's also unconscious. Sometimes we cannot differentiate where we're getting these impulses from, either high conscious reasoning mind or subconscious mind that is always making us agitated and craves for things or averts things. And we need to recognize these things and be able to start working with our mind in a most efficient way. So we want to reason before we choose the action. We need to understand the root where it's coming from. If the thought or action is conditioned by the emotion, think twice, pacify the emotion first. It's conditioned by subconsciousness. And in subconsciousness, there's entities, electromagnetic entities that are always provoking us to action. And most times those actions are not conscious. We just go with the flow and then we regret them. We really want to be able to be aware, expand our awareness to the sensations of our subconsciousness, to be aware of that what the body tells you may not be particularly so. It's tricking us. We need to filter this out. And therefore we want to sit out the emotional time and maybe even sleep on it. You know, it's a good saying, sleep on it, because maybe it's emotional, and then once you wake up in the morning, then it doesn't make sense to you, to your reasoning mind. So we want to train our mind and to expand our awareness and to sharpen our focus and increase our concentration. The best way to do is to still your mind, calm your mind. How is achieved is by meditation, is a good practice, or by chanting the prayer. Prayer is always mind stabilizing technique. Gratitude, inviting the divinity, relying on the divinity. The ultimate way to live is to be able to rely on divinity, because really we cannot guarantee what tomorrow is going to bring. We cannot even guarantee what tonight is going to bring. Things happen to people, and one thing is that it happens quick. We think that we have it all planned out, but something comes up and it's a crash of our expectations and dreams. Then in those times we start relying on divinity. Rely on divinity always. If you rely on divinity always, then you can go through harsh times easier. That means that your mind is more stable. That means that your awareness is more expanded. You can be more balanced emotionally and more in control of your own self. Then if you are in control of your emotions, you're not stressed. And when you're stressed, the time flies so quickly. But if you're not stressed, then the time flows in its right way. You are capable of doing so many things, and you're doing it with a willingness and pleasure. So this is a great way of controlling your mind in order to balance your life in that respect, in all the aspects. Breathe intentionally, and this is very important, because if something triggers you, then two things that happen. The sensation in the body is arising, producing the emotion, and your breath goes off its normal rhythm. What you can't control is your breath. So try to always control your breath. Don't pant and stress or hold your breath, but always make it natural, flow naturally. Not too quick, not too slow, just as you always would normally do it. Like you put your mind to your breath and control your breathing. So that helps. Purity of speech and thought, of course. Always filter what you say. It's better not to say things than say something unwanted, or something that can cause further vitiations. And the purity of your speech is always conditioned by purity of your thought. And so try to think the way you speak, because people think too much, but when they speak, they filter what they say. Don't say lies, at least be truthful with those who are close to you. Don't be shy to ask for help. Try to be as simple as possible. Always be as simple as possible, and that's always good. Know how to say no to yourself, especially to yourself and others. Try to be balanced in everything. Affirmations, don't reproach yourself, but praise yourself more, because we're all self-critical. That kind of comes with a modern lifestyle. We criticize ourselves. We think too much of ourselves, not fitting here or being at fault. In order to progress, we need to adequately view ourselves. And then train your brains. Do some puzzles, reading, learn languages, relaxation. Relaxation is the basis for good meditations. Relaxation is always beneficial. Do relaxation before you go to sleep. There are different techniques to relax your body completely, mindfully. Also set goals for what you need to achieve and stick to a structure and schedule. Try to kind of keep your mind in the format always in order to reach the goals. And finishing projects is also because of procrastination, and procrastination is the emotional thing. Maybe putting things for later time is conditioned not by your inability of doing that, but just because you're not seeing yourself be worthy or being able to. And maybe just address that, because again, our subconsciousness holds the key. That means that if we are in the emotional states, that means that we have some distortion in our subconsciousness that's making this block, create doubts and the feeling of unworthiness. We need to look in the past events of our life that resulted in this distorted emotion. All right, and develop interests. The person is as interesting as he is interested. So we always need to discover new things and always pursue doing something new and never stopping. Good thing to always motivate yourself, set your goals, and always be the research and be on the quest. Okay, and as a conclusion here, what we're trying to achieve is transformation. Natural health is transformation. So it is when you are taking the responsibility on yourself for your own actions, for your own health, and that goes a long way. Once we purify our senses, they start perceiving the goodness from the simple things, and they don't view other things as possible. So at that point, then you can rely on your body. All right, and sustaining the results, that's another challenge. In many ways, and here what the focus is to maybe begin slowly, identify the areas where you can do so much while you're attempting to undertake some good action. You're just rolled back, and then for a period of time you're sustaining that, but then you kind of roll back. This is normal. It happens to all of us, and this is not the reason to give up. We're just training ourselves. We're doing baby steps into this transformation, little by little. And it's normal to go back and to your old ways, but always keep in mind that you will do another attempt later. Let's say in 3 months, you can do another month of more mindful living, okay? And maybe cleansing, purifying your body, doing some more natural things, exercising. Maybe you're exercised for a month and your body just gotten so tired and it cannot sustain it so long. Then you can say, okay, I'll take vacation. That's it. That's fine. But then I will repeat it, and you go back to it. So always kind of deal with your mind, and then put it in a framework, and then it will follow, carrying its obligations. If you need help, you are always welcome to work with practitioners and coaches. There's like a lot of professionals, natural health professionals. You can always find like a personal coach, a trainer, and just set the goals and seek guidance from them. Ask for support from your family and friends, which is an important one too. Friends and true friends and your family members will support you. And who don't, then they're not your friends. All right, I think all I had to say I did. Thank you very much for allowing so much time for us beyond those 45 minutes. Thank you.
Or if people had interest in particular health areas that we could schedule something dealing with.
Yes, we definitely can continue with this sessions. I can come and talk. Today was the general overview of natural health, but then we can address some like particular areas, systems, organs, and
doing a talk on diabetes and then talking about nutrition for this condition. So something like that. Vascular issues and nutrition.
Yeah.
And we can do some demos too, so
Yes.
it can be.
You're saying fruit and vegetables, but I got the impression you're saying we shouldn't cook them, they should be eaten raw.
Well, ultimately, yes, the raw foods are the best naturally designed by nature, because nature doesn't provide you with a skillet, right? So eating fruit and vegetables, like even in the Gardens of Eve, there was no cooking probably. In transformation, it's okay to cook some and to try to leave always to complement with the raw vegetables, even though some vegetables you'd still be cooking, some root vegetables, like sweet potatoes, you'd be cooking them. Of course, you'd be cooking your grains and legumes, you'd be cooking that. But the salads, leafy greens, try not to cook leafy greens because that's dangerous to cook leafy greens. Some of what you can tolerate to eat in raw form, do that. Begin your breakfast by having some fruit, maybe some apples before you go to a heavier breakfast. Juicing.
Now, what are you using to detox? Juicing?
We can use different things. Again, it would depend on person, but we have generally we have one detox program that we are actually running pretty frequently, and it's very successful. It's very well articulated for majority of people, no matter what constitutions they are. First, we're doing the reduction. We are reducing. By the end of the second week, we are doing the cleansing procedure to our digestion, to our intestines, small intestine, purgative procedure. And then after that, we do a few days of juicing. And then we go back into the raw nutrition, introducing solid foods at the level of raw nutrition, plant-based again. And then gradually we are getting back to, and at that point we already see the results, and then we can advise on how to continue, what type of nutrition would be good to continue with. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course, thank you. If you find this video helpful, please give it a like, share it with your family and friends, subscribe to our channel, and get notifications. Also, leave a comment of at least 8 words. Comments make difference.